Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's interview. Today, I'm speaking with Patrick Staropoli. He was the winner of the 2013 Peak Stock Car Dream Challenge, as well as graduated summa cum laude from Harvard University in 2012. Patrick, how are you doing?
Hey man, doing well. Pleasure to be on the show tonight. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I was telling you beforehand, I think it's just so unique, your interest. So at the beginning, I always try to have some like random facts to introduce. And I would think that those are the two, it seems like polar opposites out of all of the guests I've had. So I was just like, that's pretty cool to throw up both of those. So
Yeah, good intro line for sure.
all right. So to begin with, Patrick, what sparked your interest in racing?
I grew up at the racetrack and around the shop. My grandfather, he raced midget cars up in New York in like the 50s and 60s. And then when my family moved to Florida, my dad raced, thunder cars, street stocks, and then, limited and super late models in Florida growing up. So I spent every Saturday night pretty much at the racetrack, particularly down here at Hialeah Speedway in Miami. So I grew up around it, loved working on the cars. And I knew as soon as I got big enough, I wanted to get in one. So I started off in go-karts when I was 12 years old, and then a little bit older than most kids nowadays for sure. And then got into full-size stock cars at 13 and then just continued working my way up from there. So it's been the primary passion I have in life.
I gotcha. So I know there's different regions where you focus on different stuff. When it comes to like being in Florida, do you still have where if you're going to get in racing, your goal is to get into stock cars, or is there any other paths that you kind of look at and say, all right, I can go to NASCAR or this, or
Yeah, Florida is pretty unique that way. I mean, especially South Florida down here, there's a lot of like international influence on the
Mhm.
racing scene. So I feel like a lot of guys that start off in go-karts, you can go one of two ways. Go from go-kart straight to the oval track stuff like I did. Or
Mhm.
if you get really involved in that, then you kind of start going like a Formula route or an IndyCar route. I
Mhm.
love the road course racing. I love turning left and right. I would do it in a stock car. It looks like a lot of fun, but my
Mhm.
passion was always to get to oval track racing. So from day one, that's what I knew I wanted to do. Dirt racing, I mean, it's big down here in February and speed weeks and everything like
Mhm.
that. But I think the rest of the year, the focus is mostly on asphalt stuff. So that's what I always gravitated to, and then
Mhm.
it's what I've been running.
Okay. So in 2013, you won the Peak Stock Car Dream Challenge. What was it like competing in the contest?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was for sure a once in a lifetime opportunity. A lot of guys you race with on regional and local levels, they don't have a big sponsorship. They don't have a lot of income, feeding their racing habit. And that was a similar deal for me. And I never, in a million years, thought I'd run any NASCAR races, let alone go out there and win one. And the Peak Challenge was just a cool deal that they put together, where guys who weren't well-funded, who never would have been able to take that next step, and put a video on YouTube saying why people should vote for you. They narrowed it down to like 9 of us, and we did that 3-day competition in Charlotte, which was awesome. I mean, short track, big track, road course, go-karts. They had like Clint Boyer, Mark Martin there, all the guys at MWR at the time. So it's basically like you're seeing stars and you were auditioning for a job. And I still can't believe I won the thing. I think I got really lucky doing that. And then the grand prize was one race in the K&N West Series. Ended up finishing 5th in my first start, and I think that caught everybody by surprise. They're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that went better than we thought it would. Let's give this dude some more races." So that was awesome. I ended up I was in med school at that point in time. I took a year off from med school, ran those 7 additional races that they gave me, won one of them, and got to work at MWR in the meantime while they were still a big
Uh-huh.
cup team. So yeah, that was like a crazy detour in my life, but it was awesome. I'm real thankful for the opportunity.
That's awesome. Yeah, Waltrip was my favorite driver, so when he formed his team, I was just obsessed. I think we visited the shop about 30 times in the span
Oh,
of like
wow.
the
Really?
7 years it was open or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one thing I'd wondered, because you hear about these little contests, and going into it, I'd wondered if there was up front, if they're like, all right, best case scenario, you're going to get this one race or whatever. Because I'd wondered, I was like, is it a thing where it's like, all right, we'll see how far this goes, or if it's just, all right, you've won this, but now you have the challenge of one opportunity to try to impress someone.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And even during the contest, they didn't tell us what the grand prize was till after the thing was over. So we
Oh
didn't even
wow.
know what we were competing for the whole time that we were there. And I think it was a work in progress. You know, even after that first race, there was a question of whether we'd even do more races or not. And I think it,
Uh-huh.
it went so well that they dug down and found it in their budget to do a couple more races. So you know, it was awesome. I got to race Bristol. We won out there at Irwindale.
Hmm.
Ended up running a ARCA race at Daytona a couple years later. None of that would have like ever been possible. I saw
Yeah.
that commercial on TV and was like, I'm going to put a video out there. So yeah, no, it was a crazy journey. It was awesome.
That's awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, Chase Briscoe was in that group as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Chase, who's got the most wins in the Xfinity series this year, he's doing very, very well. Definitely, he ended up, I think he was second in the contest, but yeah, no, he's a heck of a wheel man. He's having an awesome season. It looks like he's probably going to move to Cup next year.
Hmm.
So, you know, the contest was legit. It identified real talent, and I think that's showing through in how far he's making it in the sport. So
Hmm.
it's cool to see him go very far.
I feel like it's nice to always have those bragging rights, and no matter what happens, you can say, "Yeah, I beat Chase that time we raced, or whatever that weekend."
Hey man, you said it, not me, but
So, like, when you're doing a contest like that, is it like, do you notice people? Because I guess just as a fan, like we raced dirt bikes for like a year, but it was never anything we were serious about. We didn't have the money. Growing up, there really wasn't anything to pursue like for a NASCAR career. So when you go to something like that, do you have where it's like, all right, these two guys are stars in the making, or is it something where you can look at all the contestants and think any of these guys, if given the opportunity, could probably make something? Because I remember Kyle Larson one time making that comment that he's like, there's 30 guys out there at any given race that's probably better than me. I'm just the one that had the opportunity.
yeah, I mean, I think I look around at a lot of people I've raced, not just in that contest, you know, that the time that we did that, but coming up through the ranks in Florida. And there's tons of guys who are just pure wheelmen and who know how to work on their cars and would go very far if given the right opportunities. So, you know, fortunately, you end up in a weird position like that where you get to be in a, you know, made for TV contest and things work out. But I think anyone that was there would have been fantastic and done well had they been given the opportunity. And there's a lot of people out there who want it really bad, who don't get those shots. And that was the point of that contest, is all of us were hungry for it and would do well if we did get the chance. So, yeah.
So next up, many drivers have a secondary interest such as graphic design or whatever, but yours was ophthalmology. What brought on your desire to get into the medical fields, specifically with the eyes?
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but to condense it down, I mean, the deal I had with my parents is, like we talked about, racing was expensive. So I wasn't going to get to do it unless there was like some kind of bargaining agreement. And the deal was I had to do good in school. So, you know, pretty much from third grade on, when I knew I wanted to race, I worked my butt off. I got straight A's, and then I got a go-kart, then I got a pure stock, and, you know, it worked out hand in hand. So, you know, I knew I was always going to go to college. I thought initially I wanted to, you know, do mechanical engineering and work on a cup team and be an engineer. And it just happened. A lot of the engineering classes overlapped with a lot of the pre-med classes. And so I had made a lot of friends with people that were going into medicine. And I was like, you know, science is pretty cool. You could fix people with the stuff that we're learning right now. You know, you could do it. You can do engineering on a car. You can do medicine and fix a person. And so, you know, that kind of stuck with me. And then when it came down to crunch time to make that decision, I knew I wanted to pursue medicine, and I could keep racing on the side since that's what I've been doing since then. And, you know, then I went to med school, and I came back down here to Miami after graduating from Harvard. And that was great because I got to keep racing. I was near my late model, and you know, I drive for Jim McCoy, and you know, he's based down here in South Florida
Mhm.
also. And Miami is a big hub for ophthalmology. Bascom Palmer, where I do my residency now, is like the #1 eye hospital in the country for you know, any kind of ophthalmic care and stuff like that. So I had a big influence of that during med school, and that's kind of why I went that direction when it came time to pick a specialty.
That's awesome. So, have your diverse fields been able to overlap? Like, do you find yourself introducing people to racing, or perhaps even showing drivers or fans better, healthier practices for their eyes? I know that sounds weird, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I can see those overlapping, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I've been dragging all kinds of friends to the racetrack for years now. My roommates from college, they went to a couple K&N races when I was doing those, and then med school and residency, like I bring them to a lot of the races in Florida. The last race we ran at Punta Gorda back in June, I had a couple of my friends from my residency class that were there, and they got in the victory lane picture at the end. We finished second, but we still got the photo. So they were there. But yeah, people have a blast, especially if they've never really watched racing and definitely never been to a race. When you introduce them to that for the first time, especially some of the racing we have here in Florida is pretty damn exciting. So it's cool introducing new people to the sport. On the flip side of it, yeah, racing people like hearing about weird eyeball surgeries. So I get to talk to them a lot about that. Everyone on my crew has the best eye protection you could possibly have when we're working on the car, although they don't use it all the time. So I got to get mad at them about that. But no, the two things, they definitely translate back and forth. And I think even the way you approach, problem solving on the race car, I see a lot of parallels between how I think about that and how I think about medicine. When you're coming up with a differential diagnosis for what's wrong with someone, and then how you're going to test it, and like what's going to be your best treatment with the minimal amount of side effects. I mean, it's the same thing you're doing on the race car. You're trying to figure out what adjustment you're going to make in what part of the corner that'll have the best effect without screwing up the rest of the corner. So I definitely think pursuing both of those things has made me better at both.
Yeah, because one of the first interviews I did was actually with Hunter Smith, and he trains some of the drivers, such as Spencer Boyd, Corey LaJoy. And going into the interview, I thought, well, I've heard people talk about fitness, but after that interview, I had such a better appreciation for how much that helps someone. And him talking about, when it's, that green, white checker after 4 hours of baking in the car, you want the driver that's super fresh. And that's what I thought about the eyes. I was like, you don't think about that being a big deal, but I know even in the past year, a lot's been talked about with Joey Logano when he tried on some good glasses and he was like, wow,
Yeah.
this helps me a ton. And I was like,
I don't know
I
if you
feel like,
watched the Cup race this weekend. I think the 18 and the 9
yeah.
would probably disagree with that, but
He sees a better prescription. That's what it
yeah,
is.
exactly. You can come see me anytime in Miami. Come down.
So finally, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing two completely different things? Maybe a young driver out there, or maybe just someone out there that has those two things that he feels like it's water and oil. But what advice would you give them about pursuing them?
I mean, yeah, the simplest advice, and it's pretty cliche, is just you got to do what you're passionate about. Life's too short to waste your time doing stuff that you don't like. If there's two things that you like and they're pulling you in completely different directions, if you are that passionate about it, you'll find the time and the motivation to be good at both. There is like a certain amount of give and take, and that sometimes you're going to have to put more time and effort in one direction, and that might hurt you in the other one. Obviously, residency is super time consuming, so I'm not out there racing as much as I'd like. But at the same time, I get the best of both worlds. I get to learn something that helps people, and then at the same time, I get to hop in the race car on the weekend and go out there and be competitive. And I'm really thankful to. So I mentioned earlier Jim McCoy's, who I drive for. I have my own late model, but now I race for him most of the time. And he puts me in the seat, and his car is competitive, and we go out there and we win races, every year that we've competed together, even if it's not that many races. So, really fortunate that I still get to do both. And I think anyone can kind of take that advice and apply it, whether it's racing and something else or just two completely different things. Whatever drives you and what you're passionate about is what you got to pursue.
It's awesome. We usually at this point, I give the microphone to whoever is the guest to plug whatever they would like to plug. So if there's anything you would like to plug or promote, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I can run down the list here. So we're racing this weekend at Citrus County Speedway. It's the Full Throttle 100. It's become one of the biggest races in Florida. I think it's 10 grand to win again this year. So we're going with the 64 Chevy with Jim McCoy. I got to think D&D Welding for coming on board, Florida Camo. They're both helping us out this week. Shadow Graphics always keeps the car looking sharp. We got our own vinyl guy, which is helpful when I rub the doors off when we're racing. He always makes it look fresh before the next race. But yeah, Hamke Chassis, Progressive Parts Motor, all these guys kind of come together, War Shocks, to give us a competitive ride. So we run really well at this track. I'm hoping this year we'll be able to put all the pieces together and go bag this big one.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, Patrick.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for having me on. It's a pleasure.